Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Providence Money Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Isaac, Client Advisor at Provident. Joining me today is Christopher Tan, Founder and CEO of Provident. Hi Chris, great to have you back again.
Hi Zach, it's good to be back for the last episode for 2025.
Yeah, and
after that we go on leave because the office closed.
And every year, towards the end of the year, you'll be writing a more reflective piece. I vaguely recall that last year you wrote about, controlling on things, on spending on things that are, or rather spending energy on temporary things versus permanent things.
Did I?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Something like that. Yeah, about you talking about your trophies and how you had to clear them off.
Was that last year?
Yes, that was last year.
Yeah, I remember. But I think I threw away my trophies probably 3 years ago. I remember that specifically when I go into my storeroom. All those old trophies that I got during my school days, during my army days, I have to pack it up and throw it away. Of course, at that point, it was quite sad. I took some pictures just for memory's sake.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that I don't remember it anymore, That's the thing about keeping a lot of useless things in your storeroom. Actually, you don't remember them after a while.
Yeah, it's a very impactful article. I think I recall it's how you replace those trophies with medication for your wife.
That's right.
So that's why that left quite an impression on me. But another year has passed, right? 2025 has come and gone. And in the latest article, you wrote an article to the BusinessTimes titled "What Did My Money Really Buy This Year?" Right? So I think let's just jump right into that article. And in that article, you mentioned that there is a return on spending that most people never measure, right? So why do you think we are so disciplined about checking our investments, how is it doing, how's the market's doing, etc., but not as much as when it's evaluating how money shapes our lives?
Yeah, I think firstly, it is because looking at your portfolio, reviewing your portfolios, looking at the returns, looking at the annualized percentages you are getting, is a lot more objective. It's easier to do. Whereas if you are reflecting on the return of your life, that sounds a bit fluffy, right? It's quite subjective. How do you measure return of your life, right? How do you put a certain percentage to it? So I think that's the first reason I can think of why people will do that. Plus, if you want to reflect on how money has shaped your lives, it requires you to have a different mindset. It requires a different mental accounting for you to think about trade-offs that you have to make, for you to think about how spending the money changed your life, how certain money that you have spent cause you regrets. I don't think a lot of people like to do that. At the end of the year, you sit down, you want to think about happy things. It requires a totally different mindset to sit down and say, I shouldn't have done this, I shouldn't have purchased that. So that's the second reason. A third reason that I can think of is that, we are born in a society whereby it values wealth. It's easier to do a review of your portfolio and show how much your wealth has grown. It's easier to review your portfolio and tell people that, my portfolios have done really well this year. I've got 10% per year, 15% per year, whatever that number is. It's a lot harder to talk about contentment, alignment to your values, how actually you don't spend that money unnecessarily. So I think for all these reasons, I think very few people sit down at the end of the year to think about their return on spending. Now, most people at the end of the year, even when we do our review for clients, we look at their portfolio performances. So I think, like I said, when you gave me that question, I thought, wow, that's a really tough question to answer because I obviously know the reasons at the back of my mind. That's why I wrote that article. But to try and put it into words to explain to people why people don't do return on spending, it's tough. But hopefully with these three possible reasons, people would reconsider. Still have time. By the time this podcast goes out, I think people still have a few more days before the year ends. They still have time to really sit down and think about how they have allocated their money, how they have spent their money has somehow enabled their provident we call Ikigai, how it has shaped your own life and the lives of the people you love and care about.
Right, and it really reminds me of the money equation, right? I mean, there's always the left-hand side, the expenses that we can control, your income, your expense, your surplus. On the right-hand side is the investment returns. That's the
right.
things that we don't really have that much control over, right? But of course, I think the article is more of the left-hand side of the equation, but the qualitative side of things rather than the quantitative side of things, right?
Yeah. Plus, I don't know whether you remember when we talked about the money equation, I also shared about the 3 types of money equation, right? So there is the first one, which is the YOLO, you only live once money equation. And then there is the FIRE money equation, financial independence, retire early. I talk about the pros and cons. Well, for YOLO, there really aren't any pros. But for the FIRE equation, there are pros, but there are also cons. And then I suggested that maybe we should adopt the third equation, which is WISE, right? Or wisdom rather, right? Which is with intention, seize daily on mission. And that equation talks about the surplus that you have. After living very prudently, the surplus that you have, instead of just investing for the long term, you spend a part of the surplus to spend on things today that are purposeful, right? So actually, when I talk about spending on things that matters, I'm talking about using a certain portion of your surplus on things that matters to you.
Right, thanks, Chris. And in the article, you shared about how an example about how you spend, I believe, was 10K on an anniversary celebration with your wife and your closest friends. And knowing you, spending 10K on a dinner and a celebration is not something that you usually do, right? So I just wanted to ask, looking back, on the 10K anniversary celebration, what exactly about it makes you feel that it's so valuable?
Yeah. Well, for me, my wife and me, we have been married for 30 years. This year is our 30th anniversary. Well, time has passed, because I did it on the 21st of January, which in a month's time, that will be our 31st wedding anniversary, another anniversary. And really when, on the 20th anniversary, I regretted that actually I didn't do any celebration. We normally don't do big celebration. We are the old school kind. We don't really celebrate birthdays until our children became older and now they are working. Now they bring us out for dinners and they pay for dinners. So most of the time, our celebration, whether be it birthdays or anniversaries, usually it's just a simple dinner. But I thought, I miss the celebration, not 21st, sorry, 25th wedding anniversary. I didn't do anything. And I thought that, I better do something, right? Because I don't know whether I have the chance next time to do it again. So I decided to book a Spanish restaurant and then I curated the list. And, even the curating of the list is a great reflection, Isaac. Because the restaurant can only hold, we booked the entire upper room of the restaurant and it can only have 30 people. And you need to sit down and ask yourself, who will be these 30 people, right? And in a way, it makes you reflect who are the closest friends, your families, colleagues. I invited some of our founding members for the dinner. And I think it was of great value because obviously my wife, she was surprised. She didn't know. Everybody knew except her, including my 2 kids. They knew about it.
That must have been very hard to keep it a secret.
Yeah, and so I brought her to a restaurant and she was going up, a restaurant. And when she went up and everybody greeted her, I could see that she was moved. I could feel that she knows that she's loved by people. And so that memory of her feeling that happiness, that is beyond what $10,000 can buy, right? And I mentioned that my wife's health is more fragile than me. I don't know how long her life expectancy is. I mean, when's the next chance for her to feel that way, right? So, I mean, what is $10,000? It's not that it's small. It's not that it's a small amount of money. It's a big amount of money for a dinner. But to buy that memory, $10,000 is really nothing. You can make it back, right?
Yeah, I don't think you can put a price on that also.
Yeah, definitely can't put a price on that. So that's the first reason. Of course, the second thing that even right now when I think about it, it put a smile on my face. I remember that dinner, our closest friends, people who have journeyed with us, journeyed with her, through the difficulties of our lives, they were there. And we were just sitting around, having good food, chatting away, drinking wine. And then I was moving table to table. Some of them are her friends. I don't even know them because this is a very small group of friends that will go walking with my wife, on a weekly basis, play badminton, basically give her a quality of life, give her a life that most time I'm not at home, I'm working, but she has these friends, right? So that whole feeling of, I remember I sat down and then just looking around the room, people all chatting away. Our kids, they have known each other for ages and they're just chatting away. That feeling of having friends beside you, that feeling at this age, I'm 55 this year, right? As you age, you lose friends. You will start your life with many, many friends. And then along the way, you will lose friends. You will be reduced down to that group of friends that I call them 2 a.m. friends. That that when you're in trouble at 2 a.m., you call them. They will appear and help you, right? That feeling of having this group of friends surrounding you. I mean, what's $10,000, right? So I think that by far was my best return on spending this year. For that $10,000 that I put in, brought so much joy to myself, to my family, to my friends. Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. What is $10,000? So next year's Providence 25th anniversary. So I'll hold you to your word, right? What's $10,000 in terms of spending for a celebration?
Helen is our culture champion. So I've told Helen already that we should spend some money, celebrating our 25th anniversary. I mean, how many companies survive 25 years?
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, God has blessed us and we have survived 25 years. We should definitely celebrate.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Okay, so on a more serious note, right? Many people feel guilty spending on experiences when there are cheaper alternatives, right? So you mentioned, of course, for yourself, I think you have already gained that wisdom, and spending this amount of money, you feel that it's really worth it, right? In terms of the value that you get. But of course, for some, after spending a sum of money for a dinner, for example, right? They feel guilty. So how do they decide whether an experience is worth it or not?
I think it first starts with knowing what is your Ikigai. And we talk about it here all the time. People who have been listening to our podcast will hear us talking about Ikigai. And Ikigai, again, if you are new to our podcast, Ikigai is a Japanese word made up of 2 characters, Iki and Gai. Iki means daily living. Gai means what is of worth. So Ikigai put together is what you do on a daily basis that is of worth. So I think if we know what is our Ikigai, you know what are the things that are of worth to you, and you can afford it, and you have budgeted it. I mean, you have budgeted an amount of money for that Ikigai in your life, then you really shouldn't feel guilty about it, because that's what money is for, right? I mean, we work so hard. For what? I mean, for us to save our money in the bank, and then when we die, we look at our balance sheet. Just before we breathe our last breath, we look at our bank statement and feel happy. It's meaningless, right? So if we know what is our Ikigai and we have budgeted and we know that we can afford it, go spend on it, because that's going to make you really happy. You are spending on things that are of worth. So you really shouldn't feel guilty about it. In fact, if you die not spending money on your Ikigai, you should really feel guilty about it, because then life is not worth living. Just saving everything for the future. And sometimes I think that is the problem with the work that we do as wealth advisors, because in our industry, we are always talking about investing for the future, saving for the future. Salespeople tout products for savings. Where's that spending, right? Because the financial planning is not just about saving, it's also about spending, right? Yeah, so you really, really shouldn't feel guilty about it. And I want to encourage you, if you are listening to this before the end of the year, you might want to spend the last few days of the year thinking about what is your Ikigai? Going into 2026, how are you going to allocate part of your budget to do those things that are of worth while you still have the money, while you're still earning an income, while you still have a life?
Yeah, I think more often than not, perhaps maybe there's a bit of a selection bias, but more often than not, when we speak to clients at Provident, we're actually teaching them to spend rather than to save. But of course, if their clients are Provident, typically they're affluent, high net worth already.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it's really a lot of coaching, or rather, of course, we have to run the numbers. We have to tell them, okay, you know what, they can comfortably spend.
Yeah.
But essentially, how they got to where they are today was through the habit of saving, investing as much as they can. But of course, we must also know when we should be spending money.
Yeah, so I want to come in on this, and thanks for bringing this up, because I think a lot of people, they don't mind spending, right? But I think somehow we have this fear that we will overspend and that we will not have enough, right? And that is why it is very important first to know what is your Ikigai, and then you need to have financial clarity, which you have brought up, right? A lot of times we are telling our clients to spend. You have enough money. Do spend it. And we have to show them that actually you have the money to spend. But working with clients, it still takes them some time to get used to spend because they are not used to that lifestyle. Now, of course, I'm not forcing people to spend beyond what they are comfortable with, right? But I think the work that we do is really very meaningful because we are helping clients find out what is their Ikigai and giving them the confidence that they have sufficient, go and spend it while you have life, so that one day when they breathe their last breath, they look back and they say, I have lived a life that is well lived. I have saved enough for the future. I've left behind enough for my children, but I've also spent enough on things that are of worth.
Right, and a common topic that always comes up with in client discussions is, of course, purchasing of a car, which is, I would say, very unique Singapore issue. I mean, in terms of the scale, right? In terms of how much it costs to afford a car. And in the article, you cited an example about how you were car shopping, right? And I feel that your car story is really powerful because it reveals an internal dialogue in our head that many people don't admit, right? So how often do you think that our spending is, especially when it comes to car purchases, right, more of identity rather than utility, right? So I think just to give a little bit of context, in the article, Chris was sharing that, he was considering getting a car that's a bit more luxurious, I think in the region of about maybe $300,000, but in the end you decided against it, right?
Yeah, so I only have 1,200 words for the BT article. But perhaps in a podcast like this, I'll share with you all that my car COE is coming to an end. And I'm so unwilling to buy another car because the COE is so expensive. Every car that I look at, now I need to get a SUV for a practical reason. I need a car that is higher so that my wife can go in and sit. She doesn't have to lower herself. So I usually don't get a sedan. I will get a SUV. And I tell you, Isaac, I don't know whether you are shopping. Okay, maybe you don't have to.
I'm quite familiar with the car market. Yeah, I love cars.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to say, thank God I don't love cars very much and I don't really appreciate expensive watches. So it's easy for me not to fall into the trap of buying expensive cars and expensive watches. But back to the car story, I was looking at all the cars and they are all like $200,000 to $300,000 range. But I felt that it's time to buy because my car is like really breaking down. I don't think I can renew another 10 years for COE. And when I was shopping for the car, I was thinking to myself, maybe I should buy that brand. We have never really owned a Continental car. okay, maybe it's time now to get a Continental car. And then after a while, like, wow, the Continental car's SUV, it's so expensive. It's like close to 300 over $1,000 some. It's like, okay, I better don't buy a Continental. Okay, maybe I should go and buy a super expensive Japanese car like a Lexus, right? And looked for it, and it's like, wow, it's almost $300,000. But I was almost prepared to spend it. I was like, wow, I've never really owned a luxurious car. Maybe it's time. I'm the CEO of the company, right? Yeah, so maybe I should drive an expensive car. And I was going around researching, and I was telling some of my friends that, okay, I think I'm going to buy this model. I was telling my wife, and everybody thought I'm going to buy this model. And then suddenly, one day, I told my wife, I've decided we're going to buy back the same car that we are driving right now. My wife looked at me like, I thought you told everybody that you're going to buy that particular car model. I said I changed my mind because I just felt it was wrong because I was buying the car for the wrong reason. So just in case I changed my mind again and went back to buy the more expensive car, I text the salesperson and asked the salesperson how much was the car. I negotiated everything on WhatsApp, right? And then I told the salesperson, I'm going to go down this Saturday, I'm going to test the car. And I brought my wife and my daughter, my son wasn't available. So we went there, we test drove the car, 30 minutes, came back to the showroom. I told her, bring out the thing now, I'm going to sign. My daughter was looking at me like, you don't have to test other cars? And then my wife told my daughter, your papa is like that one. He does, once he makes his mind, he doesn't really like cars anyway. I tell you that when I was driving the car, the thing that went in my head was, this is the correct decision. Because the car is very comfortable. It's a 2.5 liter car. It's not a small car, okay? And it's value for money. It's the cheapest car in that range. So after I signed, for the purchase of the car, I felt that peace of mind. I know I went a long way telling the story of behind the car. Now, I'm not sure whether most people buy something because of their identity. I'm not saying that you cannot buy expensive things. I'm not saying that you cannot buy and drive a branded car. I'm not saying that you cannot carry an expensive handbag or wear a super expensive Cartier watch or a Rolex. Oh, no, I'm not saying that. Please go ahead and buy it if you can afford it. Okay? When I say afford it, I don't mean you earn 10,000 and then just to buy that watch, you can afford it, you spend the next 3 months of your pay. But you really can afford it. The purchase is a small proportion of your wealth and how much you can afford it, please go ahead and buy it. But we must buy it for the correct reason. If you love cars, it gives you joy. You study into cars, you collect cars, and you can more than afford it, go and buy it. Right? If you love a handbag and you buy it because it's really good quality for whatever reason, and you can afford it, go and buy it. But it will be sad if we buy it because of identity, because we think that material things define who we are. It will be really sad that I have to drive an expensive car just to show that I have arrived. I think that will be sad because we are not defined by material possessions, right? So I cannot say whether people buy things for identity sake. All I'm saying is that it will be very sad if we do that, and especially if you cannot afford it, that will be even worse.
Yeah.
Our popular Retire Well ebook has been updated. Retire Well is a methodology that Provident has developed to design a retirement income plan that will provide you with a safe and reliable stream of income for the rest of your life. Check out the link in the show notes below to download a complimentary copy of the full ebook today. Thank you, and let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, agreed. So in summary, it's more of, it really differs from people to people, right? For yourself, I think you're more of a practical person when it comes to cars.
And I also don't have so much money.
Yeah, so practical person in terms of car, you prefer a point A to point B kind of car. So I think this is something that buying a more luxurious brand is something that you feel that okay, if you do it, it's more of a status kind of thing, an identity kind of thing.
For
So
me, it's
that's
for
why-
sure lah. For me, it's for sure.
So that's
Yeah.
why you decided against it lah.
Yeah.
But I like the example that you give, like if someone is passionate about handbags, for example, and they just love the feel of carrying this particular brand. It's not to impress people. It's really just for themselves. They feel good about themselves. Then I think that is something that of course it's something that it's okay lah, I would say.
So whatever you spend, we are going back to the first question now. Whatever you spend, it must enable your Ikigai. I mean, if you buy 10 bags, 10 super expensive handbags, okay, I cannot imagine, don't judge me, okay? Those people who love handbags, don't judge me. Maybe your handbags, when you buy it, enables your Ikigai. But I can't imagine. I can't imagine, okay, because I am not that kind, right? But if it does, then okay, and you can afford it, it's okay, right? If you buy a car and it enables certain lifestyle for your family, it's okay, right? Just don't buy it because it gives you that, you feel that it gives you that status. And like I say, it's worse still. Worse still, you cannot afford it, right? And going back to that phrase, you buy things that you don't really need. With the money that you don't have, you overborrow it to impress the people you don't even know and care about. That would be the saddest day of your life if you do that.
Yeah. It's quite strange. Every time there's a slight economic downturn, you can start to see a lot of more car listings, right? So you can see actually a lot of people are actually overstretching when it comes to buying cars. Right, I think let's pivot really into the other segment of your article where you talk about healthcare. And I find it very interesting that when you're talking about healthcare, you word it as, I invest in my healthcare, right? So you're talking about the screenings that you do throughout the whole year. Yes, done a lot more screenings this year. So why do you feel that having this mindset that, it's not healthcare spending, it's a healthcare investment, why is it important?
I think if the mindset is that it is spending and it is a cost, we will try to minimize it. That's what we do.
Yeah.
We try and minimize costs, you try and minimize spending. And so then the mindset will be very different because I'll be thinking like, oh, maybe I shouldn't need to do this screening. Maybe this can wait 2 years later. But it may be too late, By the time you really want to do it, it may be too late. So I think that's the first problem when you think about healthcare spending as a cost. I mean, those of us who have done health screening, how much do you spend a year on health screening? Really, how much do you spend? $300-400 and be thinking like, wow, super expensive. How many people spend $800 on health screening? How much do we spend on the car? How much do we spend on many other things? It's more than $300, $800 a year, right? So I think changing that mindset to healthcare investment is actually very important, because if you look at investing in your health as an investment, then you will, like investing, you will go and research about it. You will find out more about what are the other tests that you really should do. And you will go and spend it. You won't feel bad about it because you know that you are investing in your health, your machine. You are investing in this thing that helps you produce more income. You are investing in this thing that gives you that life to do all the Ikigai things that we talk about. So I think that mindset shift is very important. And I always say this, investing in healthcare is like investing our money. It's like you cannot wake up one morning and say, I need to invest and next week I need to get $1 million. It takes time to compound. Same with health, right? We cannot wake up one morning after retire and say, okay, I need to have good health now. I'm going to run for 1 week and the health will come back. It takes time to compound. So it's important to look at health like investment so that, slowly we do the little things that count. We eat the right food, we exercise, we run. Then it compounds. And by the time we need that health to be able to spend our wealth to do the Ikigai things, we have that health to do it.
Right. I think the challenge is, of course, when it comes to health, it's not like investment, right? You can see what's your investment capital on a day-to-day basis. You can see the pricing of your investments, and of course, over the years, you can see how you can compound over time. Whereas for healthcare spending, the returns and the payoff are not so apparent, right? So maybe just very quickly, can you help our listeners, or rather give some advice to our listeners and viewers about how we can sort of reconcile this?
Actually, I think investment is also like that. When you start investing the short term, sometimes you don't see the returns, right? You have to go through that volatility. Some years are just bad years, negative years. But you know that if you stay long enough, you invest in the right things, the return will come. Same with health. In the short term, when you put in that first run, you won't see that return. When you go for your health screening, when you eat the right food, you are not going to lose that belly fat straight away, right? But if you stick with it in the long term, our mind knows that if I stick to a certain fitness regime, a certain health regime, I think our mind knows that we are going to reap that reward. One last thing I'll say about this is, instead of just thinking about returns, which, like I said, will come, think about regret as well. What happens if you don't do it? What's the cost of it if you don't do it? Your health may fail, right? So don't just think of short-term returns, but think also about long-term regrets. Of course, like I said, long-term returns will come, but also think about long-term regrets if you don't invest in your health.
Right. Yeah, I think that's something I need to apply for myself as well. But the thing that keeps me going when it comes to taking care of my health is the yearly IPPT I still need to take. But once that stops, I think I need to find a deeper purpose of why I should maintain my fitness.
How many more years before you don't have to do IPPT?
So they called me back really late. So my first reservist was when I was in my late 20s. I went to the UK to study for 3 years. Then they didn't call me back when I was back for a couple of years, and then they only called me back when I was 27 or 28. So that was my first reservist actually.
So 10 years means 37?
Yeah, I think I left another three more cycles, right? I mean, I'm really 32 this year already. So,
are you getting your goal?
This year I got silver.
How can? At this age, you must be getting your goal.
Yeah, I'll train harder. So, but that's the thing, right? IPPT, keeps me focused. I have certain targets for, what I want to achieve. Of course, when it comes to there's a slight monetary incentive, but I think also I feel a bit, quite proud. If I get at least a silver, right? I'll try to aim for gold next year, because you asked me to. But yeah, I think for most people it's really about finding the deeper meaning and purpose. That's why we invest in health. Invest our time to exercise and all that. The payoff may not be immediate, but it's something that we should do because we will for sure reap the benefits in the future.
I want to say that I want to confess that it's not easy for me as well. Yesterday I was researching on a nutrition course I really wanted to attend, and actually, it's not really expensive. The whole year's program is like $1,000. And then if I go for the 1 month coaching, it's around $1,000. And then I hesitated to click the button because like $2,000, right? And I'm like thinking, actually, $2,000 for 1 whole year, what's the big deal, right? Right? And it helps my health. See, even for me, even though I have written the article, sometimes I hold back. But we need to keep reminding ourselves that it is not a spending, it's not a cost, it is actually an investment.
Right. So in your article, you also talked about a personal life balance sheet, which I found quite interesting, right? So if someone were to audit their personal life balance sheet honestly, right? So what assets or liabilities would surprise them the most?
I think if they honestly sit down and they audit their life balance sheet, I think they will realize that those quiet relationships with their families, with their friends, they're actually their asset. They will realize that actually their health is an asset. We don't think a lot about it, but actually our health is an asset. That my space, in Ikigai we call Yutori, is actually an asset. If they sit down at the end of the year and they look at their life balance sheet and say, actually, what are the things that are really asset, and they categorize it, they realize that actually these things are surprisingly their assets. And then if you look at the liability side, maybe status spending, what we talk about, they will realize that it could be a liability. They buy a car that actually they don't need. They buy the brand of the car they don't need. Maybe that actually is a liability. They spend money on expensive watch. Maybe that is a liability. And for some people, maybe even the emotional stress. Some people, they are hurt by people. They feel that deep bitterness. They cannot forgive. And they hold those grudges in their heart. And actually, these things eat them up. They may realize that these are their surprising, what I call, liabilities. Right? And if we honestly sit down and we audit this life balance sheet, so-called, we may be shocked that we actually spend very little time on our assets, which we should spend more time on assets to grow our asset further. We don't spend enough time building on relationships. But then we spend a lot of time on our liabilities. We buy more and more things that cause us stress. We keep harboring bitterness in our heart. And the person that we are angry about, this guy doesn't even know this guy is living freely, right? But we are letting our bitterness eat ourselves up. So if we seriously sit down, we realize that actually it doesn't make sense for us to spend so much time growing our liabilities and not taking care of our assets.
Yeah, that's a great point that you raised. I think I keep going back to the car thing, right? I mean, if there are some people that, when they purchase the car is supposed to be served them, right? But because they spend a lot on the car, or it's a significant portion of their net worth they spend on the car, they become the slave to the car.
Yeah.
Right? So the car is supposed to serve them, but instead they are serving the car, right? A bit of a scratch here, they had to
Can't sleep.
change. Yeah, I can't sleep, when every time they park, they want to make sure that they park really far away, because
then we have to walk very far. Then we over-accessorize the car.
Yeah. So the point that you say that, you spend on liabilities that actually, you're spending money that actually, if you really reflect and think about it, is not really making our life better. In fact, you're buying stress, essentially. So I think that's a really great point that you raised. So if our listeners and viewers can change just one, out of everything that we have shared, right? So if they can just change one spending habit in 2026, right? To improve their life net worth, what do you think they should examine first? Now, I know it's not easy because, it's not universal, right? But in your opinion, what's something that you feel that could apply to the most people?
I think, you're right. When you asked me that question, I was thinking so many things I want to say. But if I have to reduce it to one, then I'll go back to health, right? Because we all know it in our head, no health, you have nothing, right? So I think that one change that I would encourage you to spend on, to really sit down and decide.
Invest in.
Good point. It's health, right? So start researching on what are the screenings that you should do, the kind of food you should eat. Don't do it only when you fall sick. Now, one more thing which I forgot to mention. When you think of health spending as a cost, because it's a cost, you won't fix it until it's broken. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
But when your health is broken, even when you fix it, you will never be as good, right? So, but if you think of it as an investment, invest in it before it's even broken. So I would say health. I want to recommend all of us a book, because this book changed my life. And this book was a book that was recommended to me by a client. And it is called Outlive by Dr. Peter Attia. I think many people would have read this book. Read this book, Outlive, Dr. Peter Attia. It talks about the 4 horsemen of diseases, right? And how you can prevent these 4 horsemen. And after you read it, I will ask you to think about, how do you prevent yourself from being sick in the first place? The kind of food you need to eat, the kind of exercise you need to do, the kind of health screening that you need to do. It's beyond those standard health screening that you need to do, and then set a budget for it, right? Now, if you do that, your health will give you a lot more capacity to do the things that you want to do, and your health will definitely give you that capacity to earn more money that you are earning right now.
Okay, so please check out their book. What's the title again? Outlive by
Dr. Peter Attia. Peter, P-E-T-R, Attia, A-T-T-I-A.
Okay, right. So lastly, the last podcast question of the year, right? So if someone...
I'm so sad it's ending. Last question. You can ask me another 10 questions. Okay, no, I'm just kidding.
I think
ask your last question.
I would, but producer Helen, probably wouldn't let us. So if someone ends this year financially ahead, but emotionally depleted, right? So that really is a sign that, in terms of their life balance sheet, something is wrong, right? What question do you think they need to ask themselves before moving forward into the next year?
Yeah, I think it's quite rhetorical, and I think if you're listening to this and you have been so successful financially, but you are really drained, I think you really want to ask yourself, is this what you really want? Is this worth it all? Right? You earn so much, your balance sheet looks great, your investments are doing well. But what is it enabling? Is it enabling your Ikigai? Is it enabling the life that you want to live? And if that is not the case, then change it. Go into 2026, be ready to change it now. It's difficult to change. We all have high resistance to change. And once we get into the habit of something, it's very hard to break the habit. So start small. What is the thing that you want to change? I've suggested health, but for some of us, it could be other things. Start changing these things and go into 2026 fresh. Because we all know this, if you do the same thing and expect a different result, it's crazy. Yeah, so I ask you to take the last few days, after you listen to this, you got the last few days to really sit down, reflect, look into your life balance sheet, ask yourself whether you are actually spending more time on your assets or liabilities. One way we can do it is to look at our calendar. Our calendar, what you schedule into the calendar, is a reflection of our life. Because your calendar, they are your activities that you do on a daily basis, right? So spend the last few days thinking about what are the things that you want to change, and change it. And I wish everyone a very happy and very healthy 2026.
Okay, so on that note, thank you so much, Chris, for your time today. Not just today, but throughout the year, to share and discuss about your BT articles. I think a lot of the pieces that you have written, there's so many different kind of topics. Some are more technical, some are more about life. Of course, I can't speak on behalf of everyone, but for myself, when I read all these, I really get a lot of value from it. And of course, even more as we discuss about them in this podcast.
Yeah, okay. You're welcome.
So to all our listeners, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like this episode, please remember to like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on future episodes. As always, thank you all for listening. Have a great end of the year and a happy new year, and I'll see you all next year. Bye. All analysis, views or opinions from interviews, recommendations and other information broadcasted, podcasted or published herein are provided for general information purposes only. Information expressed does not take into account any specific situation, particular needs or objectives, and should not be construed as specific advice or a recommendation. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal or tax professional before taking any action. Provident Limited does not accept any liability for any loss whatsoever arising from any use of the information broadcasted or published herein. All contents and information contained herein may not be copied or reproduced in whole or in part by any means without prior written consent of Provident Limited.